Welcome back to the channel. We're here today switching things up a little bit. We're done working with the S12 and now we're here with the LS engine that's going to go in the G35 drift car. Today we're going to be installing the oil pan from ISR Performance that also comes with an oil pickup tube. We'll get that all settled in. We'll go through the steps of installing this and get this bottom end sealed up. Let's go. All right, one of the first things we're going to want to do is add a little bit of RTV to these joints right here. Now there is a gasket on this front cover. This has all been freshly rebuilt, machined, etc. We used a line plate to put this in place, make sure it's good and flat. But this is a known leaking point for some of these engines. Sometimes gaskets don't quite seal here. So we're going to use a little bit of RTV. And it's the same for the rear cover too. Just going to put a little dab there. Get it on both sides, and I'll put it over on the rear as well. Make sure it's good and clean before you put that on. We have a little bit of RTV on there. I'll smush it down just a little. Spread across. Great. There's our RTV. All right, one of the first things we're going to need to do is swap the O-ring that comes supplied with this oil pickup tube. I have a Melling oil pump in this, which does specify that you need to use their O-rings. So for this style, there's no taper. With the black O-ring, and we will put on the new Melling black O-ring. And then we'll go ahead and put it in the engine. First, let me get a little bit of oil on this. A little bit of fresh motor oil there. Get a little down on that oil pump pickup. And there's this arm here. We'll want to get over that stud and settle the pickup tube down inside the pump. May take a little bit of finagling to get it to seal down. There we go. And with the original bolt into the oil pan, into the oil pump. We'll go ahead and get that hand tightened. All right. And then we have a nut to go on top of the stud. All right, I'll check the torque specs. We'll get those torqued down. All right, service manual says about 8.8 foot-pound. So we're going to put the torque wrench to 10 because I don't have anything down in inch-pounds. And just be gentle with it. Yeah, there we go. And then I'll do the same for the nut. We don't want these falling off. That'd be catastrophic. There we go. And we'll move on to... So we are supplied with the gasket with this kit. Keep that out of its packaging. Very simple, goes on one direction. You have your two tubes here. Set it over the top. Line up your holes. Very simple. All right, onto the pan itself. The pan is very nice. We have our nice baffles in here. Little flappy doodles. Help keep that oil where you want it to be when you're drifting around. Very well machined and welded. And we'll sit this right over the top, making sure that the pickup tube sets down into the sump. There you are. And again, line up your holes with your gasket and with the block itself. And then we'll start getting some of these bolts and threading them in. Now, all the hardware is supplied with this kit. All the bolts you need, washers. Now, let's take a little note here. I'll come around, make sure that we can see this. There are two different kind of bolts in this package. You'll have these smaller ones, a little thinner, that go to the very rear and into the rear cover. Make this to focus. So that will go to the rear. And these other ones go in all the other holes. So there's 2 of these, and we'll sink those in right there. So let's do that. I'm just going to use a screwdriver here to line things up, slide that around. Just get all of our holes lined up. Something else to note is the small bolts do come with smaller washers, so makes things a little easier. And once you get 2 lined up, the rest should go pretty smooth. We're just going to go through and get these all hand tightened, and then we'll torque them down. All right, this is a number 6 hex head for those playing at home. I'll grab a little drill to help speed this up. Let's get all these things just kind of in there and going. Now, you may have a little trouble getting your fingers in between the bottom of the pan and the bolt, but otherwise it goes in pretty easily. If these monster hands can do it, so can you. And with all the bolts just placed in, I'll go ahead and get those, start screwing them down. I'm going very lightly with this drill. Oh yeah, small one. I can't reach these. We'll have to do those all by hand. All right, let's see what size those little bolts are. There we are, size 5. All right, I'm gonna get some pliers for the front and try to hand tighten those down. Now, another thing to note on these rears, I'm still tightening up the rear cover plate. Putting these in will help pull that plate up flat to it, and then we can tighten down the rest of the bolts on the back of the plate. It's just kind of hard for my fingers to fit in here. It's getting a little snug on that oil pan, or it's getting a little snug on the gasket itself. But we'll get there. There we go. All right, those are all down by hand. Now let's go through the torque sequence. All right, service manual says 18 foot-pounds. Got it set on our torque wrench. I've already hand snugged all of these down. Let's go through and get them to torque, get a good crush on this gasket. Just get those all tightened down. Be as uniform as possible. I know down up in the front we can't quite get to that, but we'll get a wrench in here in a second. Feel all those getting good and snug. All right, I'll get a good wrench up here. These are also 18 foot-pound. And in the front, I believe it was like 108 inch-pounds. It doesn't take a lot. These covers are a little more frail, so you don't want to thread those out or draw out the threads or break anything in them. So Make sure we get these set on the front, or the left and right sides, and then we'll move to the front and back covers. I'm going to snug these down to where they feel like they're going to stop, and then just give it a slight bit more. Don't overdo it. All right, these small ones on the rear, these are size 5 hex heads or Allen wrench. This calls for inch pounds again, so don't overdo these. You want it snug enough to where it's going to pull up to that gasket, but also not strip out. Just to where it feels like it's going to stop. And there we go. Oil pan is on. One more thing, this kit does come supplied with a oiled dipstick. There we are. The fitting's on the end. And it gives you 2 options here. Bung on either side. And I'm just going to wait until I get the headers and some of the other accessories put on. We'll get that threaded in. So there we have it. Oil pan is installed. We have a lot more to do on this engine as it comes along. We have our oil filter relocation as well as a cooling kit. We have some high ground clearance headers. We'll get some of these things put on and we'll keep you all informed and show it all as we go. If you're looking to swap your platform with an LS, hit up our friends over at Enjuku and ISR and they'll get you hooked up on the gear you need. Thanks for watching.